This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Sean Lewis from Riverside Theatre. Sean, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Nice to see you. As the last few weeks, I have been interviewing, Hankowich from Orchestra Iowa and different, organizations wrapping up their programming season, and you're just you're ramping up for the summer.
Yeah, it feels
season.
like a trick because you finish Gilbert Street and then you're like, oh, our whole staff is like, great, we're done.
The season's over.
Yeah, season's over. And
Except for this giant outdoor festival.
Then there's a knock on the door and it's a group of like 9 actors going like, oh, where do we do the Shakespeare? And you're just kind of like, okay, right, we're not nearly done. We're just starting.
We're talking, of course, about the summer season for Riverside Theatre in the beautiful outdoor facility in City Park.
Yeah, we were just there last night for rehearsal for the first time. It's kind of great. The last time I was out there was as an actor in like 2005, and I haven't actually been out there for a show in a long time. And just directing out there, I was like, oh, this place is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is just about the coolest theater space any place.
It's really gorgeous, especially when it gets dark. I was like, oh man, everything literally disappears, and you just have the stars through the crown of the space. I was like, oh, this is special.
And this is opening weekend for now. So I have to ask: do you say the name of the play?
I don't have those weird. What would that be like? Superstitions. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. I'm doing a play about superstitions for the most part. I'm like, what's that word? Yeah, we've been saying the word Macbeth all month. So
there is a theater custom to never say that.
Right.
It's bad luck to say the name of the play.
Really bad
Macbeth.
luck to do it. Yeah.
So hopefully we're not bringing bad luck on the.
I hope it's hard. His name is said like 55 times in the play.
You can't not say it.
It's tough. It'd be really hard to have the actors going like, "That's bad luck. Don't say it."
Mr. M.
Yeah,
Mr. M enters.
M, turn around. M, fight.
So of course Macbeth, one of Shakespeare's 2 or 3 best known plays.
I'd say so.
It's hard to degrees of Shakespeare, which is the most famous play.
Right.
But Macbeth is certainly up there in the top.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that people don't go like, who wrote that? There's a few of them that people are like, Coriolanus? That's Shakespeare? Okay. I don't know that one. I feel like Macbeth's one of the ones that people at some point might have been forced to read in school. Mm-hmm. Like I know Romeo and Juliet, you definitely are forced. And then some of the tragedies, it's like, maybe.
I think I watched a movie with Orson Welles, maybe.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
He made a lot of. He did a lot of different Shakespeare. He played Othello even. So it's quite possible he filmed Macbeth.
So tell me a little bit about this production.
Sure.
And will it be a period production? Are you changing time frame or anything like that?
We're manipulating outside of time frame. Like our costumes have a really, in the world itself, have a pretty heavy like World War I influence.
Oh, okay.
We're still using like swords and some classic weaponry, so there's a little bit of a mixing. So I would say it's not set as much as pulling influence in general. The play itself, they talk about war constantly. It's a country that's been at war for as long as everyone in that play can remember. So I just started getting more fascinated by like, oh, if we made it kind of timeless and so that you had these echoes of different periods of longer wars, what would the world look like and feel like? So that just kind of like where we took the jump off. Also, like the actors look amazing in those old World War I coats, like those amazing like
the greatcoats.
Oh, I just like looking at them the other day. I was like, oh, this was a good choice.
Oh, and that's not gonna be warm at all on a summer night.
Yeah, we're gonna part of our magic trick is gonna be putting like ice packs and sewing ice packs actually inside of the costume.
Wearing a World War I greatcoat, but no pants.
Yeah, that's true. Luckily, the actors are all pros, so like, because you find yourself kind of apologizing because I know I'm not gonna have to do that for 9 performances, and I'm like, here's your wool coat, and they're like, no, I'm used to it. I've had to wear a suit out here or this or that. I'm like, great. I'm glad you're not yelling at me.
So as a director going in, what are you? Are we working toward a faithful retelling? Are you trying? Of course, you're trying to do a faithful retelling and restaging of it. But going into a well-known play like this, what are you trying to bring to it?
I guess with all theater, what I'm personally most interested in is like, how do you make magic out of nothing? Like, I think that's the best thing about theater. So like, I love that in theater you can still like you can do production. I've seen great productions of like Cyrano where like they grab plungers and they're like, "Here's my sword," and like I just love that you can still pull that off. And in the end, I just want things to be exciting. Like I picked Macbeth because it's actually like a pretty exciting play, you know, and also just like we live in such a weird like reality and stardom and success obsessed society that this like tale of ambition and this ambitious couple who like never have enough. I'm like, oh, I think people can relate to this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that people be like, I just don't get it.
400 years, people aren't like that anymore.
No, it's amazing. It is amazing as we're talking about it because we get into it and there'll be questions of like, why does he do this? And when we throw out, you know, when you throw out some of the things that I think create some distance, you know, like, well, he's a king, or sometimes I think it gets caught up of like, well, it's so old. How did they deal with this back then? And I'm like, I think they dealt with it the same way we deal with it, or at the very least, I don't know how they did, but I know that like when I think about my own like drive, like I have my own drive for success and I have my own ambitions, and there's sadly times I'm watching Macbeth and I'm like, oh, I don't think I kill people, but like I can see how once the idea gets in his head, it becomes very singular.
I might make them a little uncomfortable.
But yeah, I mean, so I think in terms of the retelling, like it's fast. Our cutting is really fast, really exciting. And I've been working really hard to make it, you know, I think the biggest separation people feel a lot of times is just the language. So we spent a lot of time trying to just work from the actor's own words so that they can get us, like it's in all of Shakespeare's text, but before we're getting into that, having them explain to me constantly, like, what do you think you're saying? Right. And like, okay, so now that we've done that, like, how do we now imbue that totally through the poetry? Because I started out as an actor, and my first 2 or 3 years professionally is I worked around the country and off Broadway doing Shakespeare. And it's funny, now directing it, I'm like, oh, I was really bad at it, but I kept getting cast. And I think it was like I had a good ability for hitting the language correctly, making it sound beautiful and vocally.
Using, you know, the words, using your tone maybe?
Yeah.
To get the message across as much as the words?
Absolutely. Like I think I understood there's certain rules you get taught in acting school, and I understood the rules, and I was a big guy so I could play warriors. And I look at it now and I'm like, I don't know that I even knew what I was talking about half the time, you know, but I knew how to deliver the poetry. So we've been working a lot on like, it's beautiful. The beauty's going to be there. We really need to know exactly what we're saying, and the audience has to know exactly what we're saying too. And we've trimmed it down in the sense of like, we're doing everything with like 9 actors, which I think is incredibly fun. Like, so you're seeing people come back in multiple ways, and it really forces the actors to, in a good way, it forces the actors to know the entire play. Like they have to really, like it really makes it an ensemble where they're all like, oh, I know every beat and moment that happens in this script. Where I think sometimes when you have when you have sometimes a large cast, like that can kind of get dropped off because it's like, oh, you have 5 lines, so I have 5 lines, so I don't really know what happens in the second act. Like that's when I do my crossword or my Sudoku. So yeah, we've been just kind of working really hard on that of just how do we make this as relatable to the audience, but also keep it exciting and keep the beautiful and the beauty and the romance of the Shakespearean language at the same time.
Talking with Sean Lewis from Riverside Theatre about the Shakespeare Festival, the outdoor festival that happens every summer. Now, of course, Macbeth is only one of the productions that you're doing. The other one is going to sound, as you were talking about communicating with tone and sound rather than words, Bomb-itty of Errors certainly sounds like it's related to Shakespeare in some fashion.
It's an adaptation of Comedy of Errors. It's a 4-person piece that I saw in New York probably 10 to 15 years ago. And they call it an adaptation. So it uses music, both like R&B, sometimes hip hop. And it's a lot like if people remember or know the complete works of William Shakespeare Abridged, which is like a 3-person comedy where they play every character in every play over the course of like an hour. It's like that. It's very funny. Like my stage manager didn't know anything about it. When I hired her for it, she was just like, what is this? Bomb-itty of what? And then she just called me on my way here, and she was like, I just have to tell you, this is the funniest thing that I've ever seen, because they had their first rehearsal yesterday. And she was like, this is hysterical. So it was a way for us to do something. You know, I've been thinking a lot about how do we get younger people connected with the arts. And also, how do we push some of our things into being a bit more modern? And this was one of those pieces where I was like, we have such a huge, like between West High and City High and all of the local high schools, I'm amazed, and like Nolte Academy, like how many students in the city are connected to the arts, like how many people are doing plays. And so I was just like, well, how can we open things up so that they can see a bit of themselves on stage? You know, like where sometimes I feel like the Shakespeare for, you know, if you're a 16-year-old who like loves poetry and is a huge theater like maniac, you're probably running to the Shakespeare and want to see it. But I know myself when I was in high school, unless I had a girlfriend who was like dragging me to Macbeth, I was probably like, I think I'm going to play some baseball. So I just started thinking about like, how do we let more parts of our community see themselves on stage? And so Bomb-itty seemed like a good option for that.
So the Macbeth opens this weekend.
Yes,
and
June 9th.
Runs through.
It runs for 2 weeks, so it will close the following Sunday, which will be the 18th.
Okay, and then Bomb-itty opens
on the 23rd, and then closes July 2nd.
Okay, so there'll be like a week in between.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a break.
All right, and if people want tickets, they can get them at your website, which is
absolutely www.riversidetheatre.org, and that's theater with R-E, like the British theater.
Well, Sean, sounds like a great selection of plays. Nice. Looking forward to it. As always, good luck, and we'll cross our fingers for good weather and all that stuff, too.
Please do.
Sean Lewis from Riverside Theatre.